tools in witchcraft conjure up a romantic and wonderful image, but the Book of Shadows has got to be tops. There are many different versions of Books of Shadow for different purposes. Each practitioner or tradition might have a different take on what the Book of Shadows means, what goes in it, and how to use it. The term Book of Shadows is unknown in origin. It might simply be a leaning towards the occult side of things, or it could very well be modern in origin, or both. Some might say that the Book of Shadows is an ancient item for witches. However, if we go back 100 to 200 years, the likelihood of anyone who was not wealthy being able to read and write is pretty low, never mind being able to afford the costly paper to write it all down upon. In today's society, as we know, literacy is at an all-time high, and so many modern witches have their own Book of Shadows. So what's inside a Book of Shadows? What does the witch keep there? What secrets does it hold? It depends on what you're using your Book of Shadows for, really. Many witches have several, which all serve different purposes. I have more than one, but my main Book of Shadows is filled with rituals, information about tools, the sabbats, the esbats, herb lore, chants, songs, prayers, and more. It's being added to all the time, with new things that have been tried and tested going in there for posterity. It's the finished product of my work. I have another Book of Shadows, which is more of a journal to record the results of rituals, spells, meditation, and the like. This is my working Book of Shadows, and when something has proven to be successful, it may then go into my finalized Book of Shadows. It's good to have a working Book of Shadows to reflect on, not merely for the things that go well, but for those that also do not perform as we thought they ought to have. It helps us to learn from both our successes and our mistakes. These are my two main books of shadow. The working one is, of course, all handwritten. My finalized one is done on a computer. Some witches don't like to use a computer and prefer everything to be handwritten, as it does help to aid the memory, and you're putting your own energy into the process. However, if you have a working Book of Shadows, this meets that criteria, and then you can finalize everything in a very elegant, stylized way. You can amend things here and there if you need to, and simply print out a new page. I like to use printer paper that's slightly thicker and colored to look like old parchment, and I also use images, some that are from my favorite books, some which are photos that I have taken. I like my finalized Book of Shadows to be visually pleasing, at least to my eye. And I also try to credit everything in there that isn't my own work, whether it is photographs or material, written material, rituals, spellcraft, and the like. Always credit the and reference it from where you got it from. If your Book of Shadows is in electronic form, it also makes it easy to travel with, and you don't have to worry about losing or damaging it. You can always make backup copies as well, and if everything fails electronically, at least you still have your handwritten account where you can start again. I first started my Book of Shadows in my early 20s, and my first electronic one was saved onto a floppy disk, which stayed at my parents' house while I was out traveling and seeing the world. And 20 years later, I came back and rummaged through a drawer in my old bedroom, and I found that old floppy disk. And thankfully, my tech-savvy husband managed to get the files onto a modern computer, and I've had such joy in going over my old work and updating it, putting new things in, and reliving some wonderful memories. I also have a handwritten finalized Book of Shadows, which I started a while ago. Now this one is far from complete. I find this one more difficult to keep up than my others, as it takes so much time to put the material in there. As well, once the material is in, it's in there for life, as it's a bound book and not in binder form like my favorite Book of Shadows. I enjoy adding artwork to the handwritten one, but it does take a lot of time. Maybe one day I'll finish it. Who knows? I also keep a dream diary. If I have a particularly poignant dream, I like to write it down upon waking so that I can remember it. They often prove to be prophetic. It's important to write it down straight away because after a few minutes you begin to lose much of the dream recollection. If you can't write it down straight away, tell the dream to yourself out loud. I keep a separate dream diary for a reason. To put all my dream recollections, spells, rituals, meditations, lore, and such like into one handwritten form would be rather messy and a difficult item to work with for me personally. I very much like to have order around me and things always have a place. I am a sucker for filing. I couldn't work with the chaotic version of a Book of Shadows that has absolutely everything in it. And which takes some time to rummage around in to find the info that you're after. But for others, this is a great way to go over their work, and they enjoy the record that it keeps and having it all in one place. So, to each their own. Having a Book of Shadows can be a great aid to your work. For those who have difficulty memorizing words, having them to hand in ritual, spellcraft, and other workings can be a great help. For those who are not comfortable improvising, to have them written down and to hand can also be a great help. Or you can use them as a guideline, going over the basic ritual structure, the ritual actions, and then either recite your ritual word for word, or go with the general flow, saying similar words that are influenced by the moment itself. In ritual, unless you have large and neat handwriting, a printed Book of Shadows is much easier to read than a handwritten one, especially in dimmer lighting, such as by candlelight. You might like to work with an already published Book of Shadows if you're just starting out, and that is perfectly fine. When I was first starting out, I used Scott Cunningham's Book of Shadows found in the book Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner, for several years. When I felt comfortable and had learned more about witchcraft, when I had read more books and met more people, I was then able to start my own Book of Shadows. There are so many wonderful journals for sale that can easily be transformed into a Book of Shadows. You can also take a binder and find or have someone make a lovely cover for you, like I did. But whatever you choose, having your own Book of Shadows is a wonderful experience, and I urge everyone to at least give it a try. Blessings.